The very first thing that I saw that 40% of the population deals with is difficulty swallowing pills. So here I was, a mom, and I know that kids just hate swallowing pills. And I knew that this is something that was going to be really important to me. I go back to everything I just said. Like, people want it easy. The issue is people are busy, they don't have time, they are traveling, they're on the go all the time, and they need supplements that will work with their schedule. Consumers first are looking at, like, is it going to be easier and faster, or is it going to be the same price or simpler for me?
Welcome to another episode of Nurify and Beautify, the podcast that shows you the other side of beauty. Every week, we dive into the science behind wellness, nutrition, and self care so that you can make informed decisions that are right for you. My name is Noura Bouchama.
And I'm Linda Yates. Today, we have a fascinating guest, Joanna Bacchus, the founder of cutting-edge supplement company that's redefining quality, transparency, and innovation in the industry. Joanna started her career as a wealth advisor, but after facing her own health challenges and frustrations with the supplement market, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She's pioneering the microencapsulation technology, ensuring better absorption and efficacy for key ingredients like Panax ginseng. Her commitment to rigorous quality control, independent testing, and consumer education has set her apart in a rapidly evolving industry. Today, we're diving deep into how she's challenging the norms of supplement manufacturing and why consumer trust is more critical than ever.
If this is your first time listening to Nurify and Beautify, welcome. We're so happy to have you. If you are a returning listener, we appreciate your support. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app and share this episode with someone who could benefit from this conversation. Now, let's get into it. Juana, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to dive into your journey.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about a new way of supplementing. I think it's very exciting.
You had a successful career as a wealth advisor, but you made a big shift into the supplement industry. What was the turning point? What made you do that?
It was an article I had read, and they had done an expose and were looking at supplements that were on store shelves, and they found out, and these are big store shelves, and they found out that 86% of them did not have the ingredients that were on the labeling, and some of them had no active ingredients at all. So for me, that shocked me so much because I am very active. I love supplements. I had tons of them in my fridge. So sure enough, I went and looked in at all the brands I had bought, and more than half of them didn't independently test, and they were on the list that was in the expose. So I literally realized at that moment that I was throwing money literally away, and I felt like not only myself, but consumers deserve better.
No, that's great. So you've been vocal about your frustrations with existing supplements. And what were some of the biggest issues that you've seen, and how did they inspire you to develop your own line?
So for the very first thing that I saw that 40% of the population deals with is difficulty swallowing pills. So here I was, a mom, and I know that kids just hate swallowing pills. And I knew that this is something that was going to be really important to me. So I knew that when I was working on developing something, I wanted to make sure that it was easy if you actually suffer from dysphagia, or you just have difficulty swallowing pills, or just pill fatigue overall. And that was something that, unfortunately, it's a lot of people suffer from it. And I wanted to make sure that I offer something that was easy to take. That was like my number one thing. The second thing is making sure, again, because I have kids, that whatever I made was going to be sugar-free. And I was shocked. My husband decided to come home one day from Costco with a bottle of gummies. And the gummies were new on the street. And I was at the time trying to decide what delivery method I wanted to use. And then I turned around and looked at the back of the bottle and looked at the sugar content of the gummies. And I immediately knew, after talking to gummy manufacturers, that was the standard. And it was also the issue that you couldn't independently test because of the manufacturing process of gummies. So again, for me, when I'm taking a look at what the issues I'm seeing in the industry is that if you can't get good, consistent dosing, people do not want added sugar. I would literally had somebody add up, they were using 2 different gummies, and it was like 2 gummies each. And they added up that they were taking 15 grams of sugar per day which over 30 days was over 2 cups of sugar in a month. And a lot of people just never did the math. He was in such shock. He literally put them in the garbage on the call with me. He had no idea. So I think a lot of people just don't add it up and realize, like, and so at the event, I was holding up literally 2 bags of sugar because, again, that is what you're ingesting. And I just think that people are realizing now that there needs to be better alternatives. And then the biggest piece too is I always look at from a sustainability point of view is all of the unnecessary fillers that are currently in capsules. It's just the way, and gummies, it's just the way that they're made. But with oral strip technology, it's made with minimal fillers. And that is so key. So right from the manufacturing process, you're getting more of what you need and less of what you don't. So these are all things that I felt needed to be changed and addressed. And the number one thing is I needed it to be travel friendly. So the biggest frustration, I am that mom that was carrying around the baggies of supplements in her bags, and I had a bag for my kids and a bag for my husband and a bag for me. And so I wanted something that I can travel with, and then I'm not going to sit there and it's not going to stick together. I'm going to forget which one's which for which day. I wanted to create something that I could travel with, that I could travel with my kids. And so now with having these oral supplement strips and them being individually wrapped, it makes traveling with them a breeze. So then it's very easy to keep my routine no matter where I am.
Well, this is one of the most unique aspects of your product is the microencapsulation technology. For those people who are unfamiliar, can you break down what it is and why it's just a game changer in the supplement absorption?
Yeah, so up until about 10 years ago, microencapsulation technology was only used for pharmaceutical use. And then all of a sudden, they realized that it could be used in the nutraceutical space. So I was lucky enough to be able to be just the timing was amazing that I met a pharmaceutical manufacturer who happened to be opening up a nutraceutical division. And the reason why microencapsulation in particular is so good is because what it does is it shrinks down the active ingredients, and in the process of microencapsulating, it protects the ingredients, allows for absolute precise dosing, which unfortunately you don't get to have in a lot of other supplement options. And it also keeps it shelf stable and active. And these are, again, a lot of the times there's testing that's done with other supplement formats where it may test okay in the manufacturer's facility, but as soon as it goes to be in transit on store shelves, it's an entirely different matter, which is why 86% of supplements are not independently tested, because this is one of the biggest issues. It's why a lot of people think supplements are a scam, is because it's just the way that the processing works. And microencapsulation takes all of that guesswork out for you. And that was the part that really compelled me, because if I'm going to take it myself and I'm going to be giving it to my kids, I want to make sure that I'm giving them the exact dosing of what it is that they need. And like I said, the article that I read, people were taking sometimes 300% more than what the daily value was, because the precise dosing isn't guaranteed in other supplement formats.
You also mentioned the importance of the encapsulation agent itself. Can you share more about that science behind that and what makes your process difficult?
When I went shopping around with oral strip manufacturers, what I can tell you definitively is not all oral strip manufacturers are made equal, okay? So a lot of them are using synthetics. It's just the way that they're built. But I'm so happy the manufacturer I'm working with, they're using only plant-based things for binders. And that is so key, because the whole idea is I didn't want unnecessary chemicals going into my body or anybody else's bodies. And it's also the fact that my manufacturer is able to, he's got patents up I can't talk about what he does, but he's able to add more into the strips. So the biggest struggle I had is that I wanted to do stacks. So I wanted multiple clinically dosed ingredients in one strip. And almost all the manufacturers that I talked to couldn't fit that much into the strip. But he's got his own process where he's able to fit multiple ingredients, sometimes 5 ingredients, all into one strip and keep it shelf stable with precise dosing. And that's the key differentiator in our products.
What I understand from you, I know that formulation in general is complicated. Supplements formulation, it's another level of complexity. What challenges did you face developing oral strip dissolving products, which is now you're going into another level of complexity?
Like, I'll tell you right now, It's the flavor. So the biggest difficulty I had, and unfortunately with other brands, I'm not going to name names, to get the flavors to not taste disgusting. Like, I wanted to create a product where it's not like Buckley's, it tastes awful, but it works. I wanted something that actually tasted good. So I literally had to hire my own flavorist because when you try and combine all of these different botanicals and adaptogens together, it's bitter, really bitter, and so it is a dance of trying to figure out, okay, will allulose work better, or will monk fruit work better, or will steviol work better? So if you look at my formulas, you'll see that there's no one specific sweetener that I use because we had to balance out the flavor profile, so I could tell you it was some 7 or 8 times, and I have testers who resented me as I was having them test my
You shared with me who's your favorite tester.
my sister-in-law by far, she's a flight attendant. She was the one that had me work on the energy strip first. That energy strip took 7 iterations before we could get the flavor at 7 back and forth. So from an R&D perspective, to try and work on the stacks that I'm doing, like, what I've learned is with my more straightforward brand, which is microstrips, where it's like methylated B12 and folic acid, so easy. Like, knowing what I know now, that would have been the easier approach. But I decided to go really complicated and get multiple ingredients. And I would say hands down, to get the flavors to be good is the most difficult part, I think, of the equation. So the scientists are there to make sure that the molecules are going to fit, that there's synergies. I like when I was doing the research for my formulas, I would focus very heavily on adaptogens, because that way every person, like your body, my body, we're all different. But if you're using adaptogens, it's going to adapt to what's going on in your bodies.
Those what steps have you taken to ensure your products meet the highest standards?
Oh, so I have to say, like, I was told by my manufacturer that I was one of the few of his customers that wanted to get a certificate of independent analysis done. He says, "Why? You don't need to do that." I'm like, I don't care that I don't need to do that. This is important to me that I get independent analysis to ensure that there's the quality and the purity and that the dosage is there. And I made an even further step of posting it on my website for each batch so people can clearly see that what they was on the box is actually in their strips. And that is something that is very rare in the industry. And I was ahead of my time. I started the development process 3 years ago, and it's just this year alone that, for example, Amazon is now delisting or it's suppressing supplements that will not do independent testing. So it just worked out that because of me being so specific, I'm literally launching these products at literally the best time, because I've taken those extra steps to ensure that what I say is in the box is actually in my products. And I'm super proud about that. And then I also hired the best legal team, and I'm still drilling down, making sure that I don't fall in the trap that so many supplements make, which is making false health claims. So unfortunately, it's very highly unregulated. There's so many supplements out there that make all of these false promises without the fact that, again, science tells you that what may work for you may not work for somebody else in the equivalent ways. So when we are going through and looking at how we were doing all of our writing and everything, it comes down to also the number one thing is that you can't out-supplement good nutrition. So if you're not looking at overall holistic lifestyle as part of a supplement regimen, then you're wasting your money buying my supplements or anyone else's for that matter. So we try and make that communication in all of our marketing materials, on our blogs and everywhere else, that you like no, and this is where I'm starting to see just this year, they are finally stepping down on really large brands for making health claims. So back 3 years ago, they were getting away with so many things, but it seems like in the last 12 months, finally, regulators are stepping in and I'm seeing a lot of change. And I think that is so good for consumers, because consumers deserve to have transparency and they deserve to know exactly what's going on with their supplements. And up to now, unfortunately, over 80% of the supplements that are there, they do not have that level of transparency or confidence in the brands that they're working.
I have to say that supplements, they fell in a strange place that's for a long time. They don't follow the pharmaceutical regulations and they're not food regulations. So they are in this gray area that we can play a lot around the regulations. And a lot of good brands actually, they rely solely on their own word and their own testing, and a place that nobody really trusts the brands anymore. And here, what you've said comes into place when you rely on a third party testing, when you apply the regulations. It gives a kind of trust. But today, in today's market, tell us more about where the supplements stands in all these regulations and in this world.
Oh, well, I can tell you from just attending Expo West and talking to some of the largest retailers in the space, by being independently tested and looking at the quality of the ingredients, right now retailers know that their reputations are on the line because if they're carrying products that now have class action lawsuits against them or having issues, it is impacting their reputation. So they are prioritizing brands that are taking these extra steps for transparency. So this is something I heard over and over again. And again, from my perspective, I'm looking at, and one of the first questions I was getting is, do you test? Well, yes, I do. So it was just such an easy conversation. And then the next level is many of them, especially if they had a science background, are familiar with microencapsulation technology. So they already know about the precision dosing and the shelf stability. So then they're seeing that this new disruptive technology for nutraceutical purposes, and that's something that is travel friendly and sugar free and delicious. It's going to be the future where gummies were when they were 0% market share and now they're 30% market share. This is going to be the future of supplementing.
We are seeing that shift away from a traditional pill supplement. You've embraced oral dissolving films. Why do you think this format is the future?
I go back to everything I just said. People want it easy. The issue is people are busy, they don't have time, they are traveling, they're on the go all the time, and they need supplements that will work with their schedule. And so with these oral dissolving films, the fact that they are individually wrapped and you can pop it in your pocket, pop it in your purse, put it in your gym bag, put it in a suitcase, it works on your terms. And I think people are tired of doing the pill organizers or the baggies or whatever. I think consumers first are looking at, like, is it going to be easier and faster, and or is it going to be the same price or simpler for me? And then they'll look at the science. So I looked at the science first, but I think consumers are looking at just from ease of use and being travel friendly. I think that's why it's going to overtake gummies just from that alone. Because again, my husband had that gummy bottle and like I left it in the cupboard and it stuck all together. And I was just like, no. And this is right in the middle of when I was shopping around trying to decide which way I was going to go. And I still remember that. I was like, well, that just made the decision so easy for me to make.
Easy for you.
Yeah.
Well, there is a lot of misinformation about supplement efficacy. You were talking about that earlier. How could you educate your consumers about what really works versus what's only marketing? There's a lot of marketing plays and
Tons of marketing. So when I was working with my supplement lawyer, just even talking about the active ingredients in each of the strips, and I'll use the example of Reducose, which is just one of the active ingredients that we use. I think what consumers need to see is that they need to see the clinical studies that are linked to it or the research that's linked to it that matches the dosage in the study. So I think the biggest, most frustrating part is they'll say, oh, it contains this, but it's only the minimal amount and it doesn't match the research that's attached to it. So for example, with Reducose, I made sure that it's why we have 60 strips in a pack. It's because the clinical dosage that was studied, and I needed to put it on 2 strips for it to all fit. So I think the biggest thing is making sure that when you're talking about your products, you're not talking about the product as a whole, but the ingredients and what the ingredients have been studied for, and if the dosage that you have in your product matches what the studies are showing. And I think that's where transparency comes into play. And so one of the things that I'm doing is, again, we want to link that research and we have to do it very compliantly. And it has to just give the consumer the access to be able to go into the PubMed journal and then read the information themselves. So it's an added layer of transparency. And I honestly think that's the way to go.
You just kind of covered my next question for you with regard to transparency and standing out as so that your brand stands out as an educator and not just a product line. Is there anything else that you're doing with that?
So, I mean, I have met over the last 6 weeks the best dietitians and functional nutritionists. They all have science backgrounds, and they're all the ones that ask the toughest questions at Expo West. And they are my biggest advocates now because they look at the ingredients, they know some of the branded names like Chromax, which is a form of chromium. And so they're familiar with those things. They're literally looking at those things. Having people with a science background who can then support our brand, not saying, oh, this is going to help out with this condition. It's about talking about the quality of the ingredients, talking about microencapsulation and how it provides efficient absorption and allows your body to absorb it better compared to other formats. So that is like my biggest push that I'm doing is working with people, doctors, scientists, nutritionists, dietitians who are understand the space, understand the science, and then can then talk about how this is a true differentiator in the space.
Going to the marketing. So a lot of wellness brands struggle with the balancing marketing with over-promising. We've talked about that a little bit. So what's your approach in balancing education and ethical marketing?
I actually did anti-marketing, and else to put it. I don't sell my products. I create a free guide and or a checklist every week on a certain topic that my target audience is looking for, like a 7-day gut reset. And then I talk about things that you can do to help reset your gut or top tips to help boost your metabolism naturally with foods and herbs. So the approach that I went at it is to educate them on the food and the nutrition because that is so much more important than supplementing because a supplement ends up being a band-aid solution, but I want to inherently fix the issues that are causing the 92% of the American population has metabolic syndrome. And that is to do with the food and the chemicals and the things that they're eating. So I decided to go a different route, which is offering these free guides every single week. We build our social media strategy around that. They download it by entering their email address, and then we take them through a journey. And through there, we then introduce our brand, but we've earned the right, we've educated them, and then we're teaching them how it's part of an overall healthy diet. And that's possibly the wrong way, but I already have seen organic sales come naturally from that approach, more so than the agency that I hired that threw spaghetti on a wall and started throwing all these ads out. I had to fire them. So I'm looking at just launching in the short time. I'm seeing quality people who are now repeat buyers on my products. So I actually feel like you need to take care of their overall issues, other overall symptoms, but don't be product pushing. So I don't know if that's opposite of marketing, but this is what I feel is what consumers deserve and not the approach I'm
It's smart marketing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely education marketing for sure. So I love, Joanna, that you involve your daughter in your product testing, especially the children's supplement line. What's the experience been like for you?
So my daughter has, ever since she was a baby, a gag reflex. Like, and it's bad. So I figured if it works for her, it'll work for every child in the world. So
From the worst.
then Helito, so I literally had her test all of the textures and everything because the other thing that I think about too is that my applications go beyond just children. I think about seniors who, as they get older, it literally is a condition called dysphagia. It's really difficult for them to swallow. So they truly have a bad gag reflex. So my daughter is, like I said, just had the worst one. So I figure if it worked for her, it'll work for a senior citizen who's dealing with those specific issues. So a caregiver can feel comfortable giving it to them as well and not having to worry about them choking on it. So yeah, and my daughter's very picky with the flavors. So she literally had hers, would do it at different times. So yes, she was an advocate for picking out the right flavors that kids would like.
Love it. Oh, juggling, running a company, parenting, product development, and all what comes around it. What's been the biggest lesson for you in balancing these roles?
Huh. Well, just I involved my kids. My daughter helped me do where it was like they're talking about the lingo that 12-year-old have. She helped me write a script one time for my TikTok. Like, again, my kids are involved. I try and involve my kids in everything. This is one of the benefits of being an entrepreneur is that I have work and lifestyle, and I think that's the best part of being an entrepreneur is that I have the flexibility to be able to do both successfully, but I love the fact of involving my kids in the process and helping them choose things and pick the colors. So I do involve my kids a lot because I want them to be engaged in the brand, and especially on the children's line that we're going to be launching. I mean, they are my target market, so the colors have to attract them. So it's going to be working for other children that are out there. So it's always a juggle. I mean, my husband juggles it too because we're a team. So both of us are incredibly busy, but everything is always like a juggling act. I think for me, being able to work from home and making those choices has been able to help me balance it a lot. I love it. Yeah, I would never choose anything different. It was the best decision is being able to do something that gives me the flexibility to be able to raise my own kids.
And it's brave. Yeah, it's admirable as well. I've loved chatting with you, Joanna, and it's been a great conversation. Before we wrap up, can you share 3 things consumers should look for when choosing supplements?
The number one would be, is it being tested? Is there a certificate of analysis from an independent third party like a Eurofins or whatever? You can easily check on a company's website, or you email them and ask them for the certificate. That would be the number one, because then this way you're not wasting your money, because I really think money is valuable, especially these days. So number one, don't waste your money. So if they don't have that certificate of analysis, you have to question why they don't have it. So that would be the number one. And then when it comes to supplements themselves, I honestly feel like people take a bunch of stuff they shouldn't take. So the biggest thing that I've learned is that you need to have a personalized plan. If you work with a naturopath or you're working with somebody who's a functional medicine doctor, you need to, number one, before you start taking anything, get your levels checked first. It always shocks me when I talk to people and they're just pill popping and not knowing. And I'm like, when's the last time you got your magnesium checked? When's the last time you had your vitamin D checked? And this is what I went back to school for. So this is for me. What are you doing? Go get your levels checked. You should be getting your levels checked once a year, because a lot of the times people are buying stuff looking for a solution. They're not taking the right thing in the first place. So this is where you go to your doctor. Sometimes you have to pay extra to get the extra testing, but it's worthwhile because everybody's body is different and you need to have a personalized plan that's based on your needs. Because what they say can work for one woman or one man may not work for you at all. That's 40% of the population cannot absorb B12 and folic acid. People have no idea. And so they're taking these pills and they can't absorb it. So they're wasting their money. So you got to check to see, do you have that gene? If so, then you need to take a different form of B12 and folic acid if that's what you're deficient in. So I think that's the biggest, I guess that would be the second issue. And then it comes down to everybody is a procrastinator. Everybody has different lifestyle circumstances. So you have to pick what will get you to commit to a regular schedule. Because one thing I can tell you with my products, it's for daily use. It has to build up into your system. There is no such thing as a quick fix. If a supplement company is saying it's a quick fix, they're lying, because it needs to build up in your system. Like I look at my glucose support, my hormone health, it has to build up over the clinical studies for Reducos was 6 weeks. So you have to make sure that whatever you choose, you are consistent in taking it so that it can build up in your system for at least 6 to 8 weeks. So you can actually see if you're getting the benefits. Because if you're trying it for a week and say, oh, it's not working and I quit, you're wasting your money. Then you're going to have a graveyard of supplements in your cupboard. So that would be the other thing, is that consistency is key.
For those who want to learn more about your products, your research, and your upcoming releases, where can they find you?
Oh, so you can go to www.biostripshealth.com. And then I am everywhere on TikTok, Instagram. My handle is Joanna Bacchus. I have a personal brand that I'm just starting back up again. But yeah, and then we're on LinkedIn for under BioStrips. And we have a TikTok shop, and we're just getting set up on Amazon. So everyone give me a 5-star review after they see the benefits.
We can be on Amazon too.
Yeah, I wanted to make it really easy for people to be able to purchase it.
That's great.
Well, I'm really happy you were here, Joanna, today. I'm sure everyone learned a lot from you. And I agree with you 100% on your 3 tips. That's going to be my favorite one.
I know. I wish there was some magic pill or magic supplement that would work for everyone, but this is all the science in the world will tell you. But every single person is different. So I honestly feel like, yeah, not what works for me and you is not going to work for other people. So it comes down to every individual.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. And we wish you all the success.
Thank you for taking the time.
I just want to thank you for pulling back the curtains on the supplement industry. I love how she combined science, transparency, consumer trust in space that really needs it. The supplement industry has been for a long time in really a gray area where no one really knows what's the regulations, what can we do, and a lot of people to get advantage of that. I have to give it a shout out to everyone who really wanted to be in the good side because they really wanted to do that. They did not have the obligation to do that. And that's something I like. Chapeau to Joanna.
Yeah, that is great. So one of my biggest takeaways from visiting with her was she's always asking questions, right? She was questioning when she saw the study and the statistics, and then she's questioning the formulation. And then too, for myself, I'm like, she's talking about the jar of supplements. That would be me in both the morning and the evening for me, I must admit. And to ask the questions, to get blood work, I think that was really powerful. So knowing how they're tested and sourced and formulated can make all the difference based on our chat with her. So we want to thank you, our listeners, for listening to Nourify and Beautify, where we show you the other side of beauty. And if you'd like to learn more about us or read our blog, we'd love for you to visit us at nourify-beautify.com. I'm Linda Yates.
And I'm Nora Bushama. See you next time.